Kürdistan şevkarat pirava çevena gavkhadat gvidli zamaniya çavkhatat mukharan batonsa tav davan griyo tabaniya.
Hi, I'm Mike Turbo from Northwest Armitsari, and this is the intro and the beginning to the video portion of my review of the Shrike Forge Khmali, Georgian Khmali model. This is a really exciting weapon for me to get to play with, this prototype here that I'm holding, because this is the first time, to my knowledge, that we have had a trainer in this style, built and hilted in the traditional manners, that not only handles like the real and antique swords that I've handled, and looks rather like them, but also meets North American safety standards. Over the years, I've used a lot of different trainers, many of which were adapted from a blade from something else. I got to the point where I ordered a trainer from Georgia, made for me. Beautiful sword, absolutely gorgeous, love it to death. But the way they do trainers in the Republic of Georgia tends to involve leaving the edge rather soft so that they bite and overbuilding them. And it had no flex, it wasn't safe in the thrust, which becomes problematic playing in events here in the US. So when I first engaged with Mark, we were looking for a sword that would meet SCA or HEMA safety standards for events and still handle and look like a real sword, not a Georgian fader of some sort. The result is this. This is the first prototype of the Shrike's Forge Georgian Khmali. This style of Kamali, and Kamali simply means broadsword in Georgian. It's a single-edged sword, relatively, short. It's not super long. I'm 6'4", and you can see this sword is roughly the length of my arm plus a little bit. I'll have exact measurements later in the review, and it's hilted like a shamshir. It's got the tang runs about this far deep into the grip, and it's pinned in place. The classic Georgian Persian style star-shaped guard. This one's a little bit longer than some of my kevser style ones, a little more of a lowland guard. In my personal weapon that I've already placed an order for because I love this thing so much, I've actually asked to shorten the guard and make a few other changes in the grip. The fittings on this is a prototype, and it's always been intended to be torn down, so the fitting work up here is a bit more haphazard than the production models. Less decoration work, less time and effort into the fittings here, knowing it was going to be torn apart. Where the real care and effort absolutely shows through is this blade. This thing is tough. Put it through a lot of trials this weekend, including managing to track down a good friend and colleague who runs school in the next town over from me, so we could put some masks on and responsibly fence and give this thing a test. We both absolutely loved it. This blade, the heat treat's good. It's taken a few dings in fencing, but nothing that can't be filed out easily. And most of this, I think the production models, the edge will be a little more rounded, which will help with some of that. Flex on the blade is great. I can get a nice solid bend in that, and spring back, no problems. Lovely spatula tip. We were fencing with this untipped. I know in events we'll put a tip on it, but just trying to test it, this feels very safe. It's got a nice solid cross section of that tip. I don't know how well you can see that pointed at the camera, but she tracks well in the cut. She moves like the originals that I've handled, and the customs that I've ordered, sharps from other places. This particular design is what we would consider an early period kevser Khmali. The kevser being the people in the Caucasus Mountains of the Republic of Georgia that kept their form of sword and buckler alive into the 20th century, to the point where in the 90s and the early 2000s, there were still a few old men left in the mountains who had fought this stuff for real in their youth. And there's been ongoing efforts by scholars in the US and in Georgia to preserve what's left of this art. And I think this is an invaluable tool for those who are interested in it, in studying it or preserving it. But yeah, I'm going to give you guys a lot more data either in video or in picture and written form in the rest of this review. But to make this long story short, I've handled a lot of different trainers for this over the last almost decade and a half now, from cut down wooden bokens to all sorts of things to swords I've had made and shipped to me from Georgia. An amazing sharp that Mr. Gochaligidze built me, antique Georgian pieces that I've managed to get my hands on and play with. And of all the trainers, of all the blunts I've had, this is the one that I'm the happiest with. It's a joy to fence with, tracks cleanly, fences cleanly, holds, tracks well in the thrust, cuts well, distinctly benefits for performing a cutting action correctly the way that we're told the kevser did it. While you can fence with this as if it was, you know, a Western style saber, or even play bolognese or something with it, this weapon is really meant to be handled in a hammer grip. And I do mean a hammer grip. And here you can see there's a little extra guard left below my hand to fit a heavy hand or a gauntlet on there. But we make two primary types of blows with these. I have the Georgians being known for little ticky-tacky cuts, either with these together or with the weapon darting out and coming back. And yet it also makes the large sweeping cuts very cleanly. And more than that, right, I can make the same play come through, cut around, and thrust through very cleanly. I mean, to be quite frank, put a nagel on this in a different grip, you'd have a beautiful messer too. There's a lot of overlap there for people who study other styles. But the long and the short of this is, after 3 days now, and literally several thousand blows against the PAL, as much bouting as I could squeeze into the COVID era safely, and I'm going to be circulating this through the hands of other members of our club as we can safely do it, and soliciting more opinions. But on the whole, I love this sword. It's a great piece. It's the first of its kind made here in North America, that really ticks off all the boxes to train in this style of swordplay. And if you're at all interested in it, Mark's getting ready to put together the first batch of these that he's going into production on. Hit up Shrike's Forge out of Southern Oregon, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do.
მუხრან ბატონის ყმობითა ქვრივერ დავდგი გოდრითა
Eventually I'll replace them.
Magad pera mepe ereglem gakut khas saumrat jvari dak zera